Okay, so my name is Elena Foraker, and I graduated in 2015. I majored in art, studio art, minored in Spanish because I never filled out the paperwork, but so art in Spanish. Yeah, and now I just graduated like a month ago with my MFA in graphic design from RISD. So fresh into the world again.
There you go, round two.
Yeah.
So yeah, kind of how I've been going is just kind of like in linear order and just kind of like looking at like your time at CC and then going on into like the present and that whole experience. So I just am kind of wondering, like, when you were first starting CC, did you always think that you would like study studio art, or were you coming in being like, I'm going to be a physics major? Like, how did that process kind of unfold for you?
So I studied like AP art in high school, so I knew I was interested in it and maybe was going to minor in it, and I thought I would major in anthropology. So I took this like art in the Southwest history anthropology course, the first 2 blocks, and we went on this like 12-day field trip right away, and it totally turned me off of anthropology. We had like steak burritos every day for 12 days, and I was vegetarian, and I was like, no. So then I just started taking art classes and realized that I liked them a lot better than other classes. So I just kind of went with it. It wasn't like a one day I decided, but I'm really happy with it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And like, what were kind of some of like your first classes that you took that kind of like got you into the loop of CC's art department?
Yeah, I took drawing with Jean Gumper, and then I don't know, I think I went pretty quickly into advanced drawing. I remember I took advanced drawing the first block of my sophomore year and was Bogdan. Mm-hmm. And I ran a marathon in Colorado Springs like that morning. So I was like, Bogdan, I might be a little bit late to class. And he was like, I don't care. I was like, I ran a marathon. But yeah, so I took a lot of drawing, and then really liked that. And then I took printmaking, and I think my my moment was advanced printmaking with Kate Leonard. Mm-hmm. Kate is like the best. And I was in that advanced printmaking. I was a junior and everyone else was seniors, and so I was pretty intimidated. But it was like, I forget block system, but it was a block that we had Thanksgiving, and she assigned us this assignment to draw every single thing you eat over the whole time, the break. And I took it very seriously, and I drew literally every single thing I ate, and no one else did. Every senior was like, whatever, like, I'll draw some things. And I was just nervous, and I wanted to like live up to it, and drew every single thing. And I got back to class, and everyone was like, why did you do that? I was like, I don't know. But then Kate liked me, so it worked out.
Yeah, printmaking, I had just normal printmaking with Kate, like not advanced. Hopefully I'm taking that next year. But I was also just like, all right, Annika, like the studio is your home. Like you have to, you want Kate to like what you're doing and be proud of you.
Yeah, you really do.
Yeah. So then I guess kind of like outside of art classes, like CC is all about, like, yeah, you're like majoring in something, but you also, most people have like so many interests. So like, outside of art, or I guess like it could have been like outside of CC, what art stuff were you into? Like what stuff, what other classes really like were interesting to you? Just,
What did I do at CC? I did a lot of like rock climbing. I like designed some posters and t-shirts for Llama-Palooza and various like bluegrass things. And I think that was my first taste in like graphic design, which was fun. Enjoyed doing that. Outside of CC, I don't know, I was in a bubble. Mm-hmm. It's so easy to be in a bubble. But I will say that having all of like the liberal arts classes that are required or whatever, the writing. So like now that I went to RISD, there was a period of time when I was like, maybe I should have gone to just pure art school because this is amazing. Mm-hmm. But then came thesis year, and you have to do so much writing, and I was so thankful that I had a broader education and could like write essays as well as do art.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that really came in handy. But what did I do? I don't know.
Like it could just be like other classes that you really liked. Like maybe there was like.
Oh, I went abroad to Spain. That was cool. It was very intense. It was like, I don't know, do you guys still have the Mediterranean semester?
Now we have, I think it's like in South America. So it's like Chile and Argentina.
Yeah.
So I think they're cycling through stuff.
Yeah, well, I went to the Mediterranean semester. It was the first year they had done it, so it wasn't really like, tested yet. And so it was like in Spain, and then you could also go to Greece or Morocco, but I just stayed in Spain the whole time. And there was 5 girls the whole time. It was like a weird experience, but a very memorable experience. A big part of my CC time. Yeah, so I guess I like Spanish classes, and honestly, it feels like a long time ago. I don't remember what
Well, I mean, we'll start moving on then soon into like what are recent stuff, but I guess I guess I just lastly want to kind of like touch on your thesis and like kind of see like I guess what were like the major stepping stones or influences that led to that. Like I'm going to be a senior and it's just like, oh my gosh, the world, there's so many things I want to do. Like I guess what was that process for you, and how did it kind of like start to manifest and build?
That was a crazy process for me. So I began the year and I was like so steadfast. I'm like, I'm going to do these realistic portraits and landscapes and maybe both. Like the work I was into was super intricate, super like formal, and and it wasn't very conceptual at all. It was just like, I want it to look like this. And I was super into it. And then I took painting, an advanced painting, I think. I was doing lots of landscapes and portraits. And then it came to like one of the first crits when we had like the whole thesis class together. And I remember I was like super psyched. I was like, I love what I did. Like, this looks so great. And then I think it was like Scott Johnson or someone was just like, why are you doing illustrations? And I was like, what? It was like really crushing. And I was like, and then I got really defensive. But then I think that was the turning point where I was like, yeah, I gotta loosen up. I gotta try some new things, be like more open to just whatever comes out of this. And so I started doing more abstract drawings, and then like hung out with Kate Leonard a bit, and she helped me figure it out that I was going to do that. So I did a bunch of like ink and charcoal abstract drawings based on like a cow skull. They were like very angsty. I was super angsty at the time. But I think I used my thesis to like get out my angst. It was like my way of working through it, and everyone was like, it's so great how you pivoted, and I was like, I was just really impressed. Yeah, and then there's like, how many blocks do you get to do your thesis? 1, like full block?
It's like, well now, so there's like the block where you go to New York, and then there's also like the semester long seminar. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
But you can like work on it. You can take other like thesis blocks off, technically.
I think we had a built-in thesis block, but I took another like quote advanced drawing class where just Kate was I like didn't go to class, and I would meet with Kate like once a week and show her what I'd done. So she kind of mentored me through the whole thesis pretty closely. And I don't know, I kind of just showed up at studio every day, and that led to something. Like you have to, even though you're not feeling creative, you just gotta go and sit down and put pen to paper. I thought I was going to do printmaking because I had done it so much leading up to it, but then someone was like, what's the point of having it be multiples? And I was like, there's no point. So then they're like, just draw. There.
Yeah, it seems like everyone kind of like goes through this process of like, and Kate's been talking to me about this too. It's like, oh, you have this big idea, but like let go of that. Like just kind of, the process like speaks for itself, which is also reassuring when it's like, yeah, like not looming over you, but like you do feel a lot of pressure to like produce and like, yeah, have it be a certain type of thing and your show and everything. But
yeah, I think you have to think like micro level instead of macro level, because then you get so overwhelmed with like the big pressure of it. But if you think like, today I'm going to do this and see what happens and show this,
yeah.
like it's just day by day it builds.
And so do you think like your thesis then when you like completed that, was that kind of like this aha, like, okay, this is what I want to do. I want to continue doing art? Or like when you were like about to graduate, like what was kind of your thought process there? Was it like, okay, like I feel pressure to get this kind of job or like do this kind of thing? Like how did your thesis impact that? And also, yeah, what was your thought process when you're about to graduate?
Yeah, graduation's rough, but I think I had decided that I wanted to do art still, but wasn't going to put pressure on myself to like make money selling my art. But I still wanted to work in the art field. So at CC, I worked at the student galleries, work study most of the time. And so I was like, maybe I'll work in galleries when I graduate, like this, I can continue in the art world. And then I moved to Oakland, like right after graduation. And had an internship at this art gallery, Johansson Projects, but it was an unpaid internship, and that was kind of eye-opening.
Mm-hmm.
So like I interned there, and I bussed tables at a restaurant nearby, and then I was like trying to get into some like small galleries in Oakland, but it definitely was like challenging. I didn't know anyone there. I was just like random internet stranger emailing people. And so I guess like my internship was 6 months, and I kind of gave myself that time to figure out my next steps. It was like a good in between, like I had it set up by the time I had graduated, but it definitely taught me that I don't want to work in art galleries. And I don't, it was a rough time, but I think everyone has a weird transition after college. And I think I knew I still wanted to do something creative. I just had to like rethink about how, like open my horizons about what that could be. And also like what could make money was definitely something to think about with the graphic design.
And then and then you kind of like worked for Minted, which is like this online platform. Was
Yeah,
that kind of like after the 6 months? Like, how did that was that at the same time or how did that kind of work?
I think there was like a tiny overlap. Basically, I don't know how I found it. I was like looking for jobs online or something, and there was what is it called? It was like holiday production assistant, blah blah blah. So basically, Minted, they sell cards, or they sell a lot more than cards, but mostly they sell cards, and holiday cards is their main thing. And so the customers customize them. And so like my job for a good few months was just to like fix people's spelling, make things centered, like on Adobe Illustrator. And so before that, I just kind of taught myself Illustrator, and I was like, this could be a good way into graphic design. And it was it was funny. But then from there, I worked as a production assistant. So Minted, the cards they sell are cards that independent designers across the world have designed, and then consumers, there's a contest, and the consumers get to vote on which cards they like the best, and then whichever the winners are, they get money, prize money, but then their cards are sold on Minted. And so it was my job to like fix the artist files before they go into the system to be customized. And it was I got really good at Adobe, but it was very like also super tedious and repetitive, and kind of a wake up call into the real world. But I think at that point I decided, I was like, I think I like graphic design, but I hate this. So I decided to apply to grad school at that point. And then from there, I still have getting like promotions at Minted, which was confusing, but I worked as artist relations. So I was basically like customer service for our 20,000 artists, which made me really jealous because like I was their customer service person, but I would rather be the one designing.
Yeah.
So it gave me motivation to like get my portfolio together, apply to school, make it happen. But
And
at CC, sorry.
oh no, go ahead.
I was gonna say at CC, I think it's changed now, but when I was there, the only time we ever touched a computer was like in photo class for 2 days where they taught us how to just isolate things in Photoshop, and I hated it. And I was like, I'm never gonna use a computer. I'm never gonna sit at a desk. But like, oh, how things have changed.
I think, well, that's CC still definitely very much like hands-on and anti-computer. Not anti-computer, like there's some stuff, but I think it's still very cultivated by the individual. But I think it's slowly like starting to be more and more like that. But so was it like that experience that you were like, oh, like this is what like I want to do graphic design because of working for Minted, or had that always been something kind of like in the back of your mind, the graphic design thing, or how did you decide on that?
No, it was kind of because of Minted, because I saw people were making money using like creatively, and I really, don't tell Minted, but I did not love their aesthetic that they were cultivating. And so I was like, if I were to do it, I would do it this way. And so in my mind, I was like, I could do it better. And then at that point, I kind of started researching like design schools, and like Instagram was actually super influential. There's just a lot of accounts that are like posting really good contemporary graphic design, and I would look at that and I'd be like, I could do this if I like learned the softwares. So at that point, I had to teach myself a lot of things. To just because to apply to grad school, you need a portfolio, right? Of like, you can't really put drawings in your graphic design portfolio. You have to put graphic design, because my program was 3 years and 2 years. So there's like, I did a 3-year program. So it's for people who didn't study graphic design undergrad, but we mix with people who studied graphic design undergrad and have worked professionally for like 10 years. So like we have to just like, we blend in after 1 year. But our first year is kind of like a whole undergrad experience crammed into one. But I don't know where I was going with this. Graphic design, yeah, it was not on my radar. I thought it would be really boring to work at a computer, but I like it now.
And yeah, how did like what made you decide on like RISD? And I think like a lot of seniors are like, okay, like is grad school something I want to go to? Like what are they even looking for in my portfolio? Like how do I like stand out, especially like as you said, someone who's not been working for 10 years or like went to like an undergrad graphic design program? Like what's your kind of advice on like selecting a grad school, like why you selected RISD, and like how your portfolio kind of came together?
Yeah. So I applied to a bunch of schools all throughout the country, and RISD has kind of always been in my mind because my dad used to live in Providence when I was in middle school. So like I knew of the school. I knew it was a good art school, but I ultimately chose RISD because I visited and the studio was super nice. Like the people I met were super nice. It just like felt like a good environment. I think more than school's reputation, you're gonna get a good education pretty much. If there's like a certain tier of schools, like you're gonna do well, but it matters more about whether you like fit with the culture and like enjoy your peers. I think like that really affected my experience. Like I have amazing new friends that maybe I'll start a studio with one day. But yeah, so for my portfolio, I spent like a good maybe year getting myself like really acquainted with Adobe things and just self-generating work. I would just like I would like redesign an album cover, or like they don't really care if you are getting paid for the work you're doing. I think they like actually like it that things are self-initiated and it shows like what you care about versus like what the client has made you put where. Like professional people actually had a hard time like showing themselves because like the client really controls a lot of things when you're working. But I kind of, I used definitely like skills from CC, like formal composition, scale, like everything applies to like typography or mixing image and text. I'd say they definitely want to see you try to use text. My portfolio was like pretty like form heavy, and they're like, oh, you don't know how to do typography, and I was like, I don't. But yeah, I would just like walk the streets of Oakland and like get inspired by something and take a picture and then just go home and like create something. But it's hard to do that when you also have like a full-time job and you're exhausted.
Yeah.
But I would say that, so I took 2 years in between CC and RISD, and I think that's like the minimum one should do. I mean, I know people go directly, but I think like life experience and like knowing how not far the dollar goes is important. Like putting in the work of like being a professional anything, and then you have to like, then you know that you really want to go to grad school versus like going to grad school because I don't know what else to do.
Yeah.
I
think that's really good advice, because I think a lot of people do feel pressure to go to grad school, and like, yeah, then like you said, there's so many people who've like had this experience, whether like you said, that's just like seeing a cool sign or a cool album cover and getting inspired from that, which you wouldn't have done if you're just like automatically back in the classroom, or like, yeah, like you said, being really self-motivated to like learn Adobe and everything.
I think grad school you have to use, and also it's like I got another like 100,000 in debt because of this. Like you have to really want that to accept that debt. And I mean, we do have like a lot of like amazing teachers and mentors at grad school, but it's also like you have to want it and want it. Like CC is very intense, I will admit, but RISD was insane. I like didn't sleep for 3 years. You have to want that. And you have to, I think you have to really love it. And I mean, for me, I kind of lucked out that I love graphic design, but I know people who have like gone to grad school for things that they were just like kind of into and regretted it. Like you have to like, whether you're going for ceramics or whatever, you should be like really into it. And
for sure. And I think like another thing that's like intimidating for CC students is like feeling like in class you haven't really used the Adobe suite that much. And yeah, also like, I guess, how did you just like watch YouTube videos? Did you like ask people? Like, I mean, I've like taught myself and like did a program with like the Adobe suite, but like, I think it's like, you know, good for other people to hear, like, you don't need to go to grad school right away and like, you should learn this stuff. So like, how did you kind of learn it?
I did a lot of YouTube tutorials, yes. But the thing with RISD, so like I came in actually more advanced than most of my peers. Like I, from Minted also, like using Adobe Illustrator 8 hours a day for like a year. But they basically, when you come to grad school, they're not going to teach you how to do programs. They don't care. They're like, that's outside of class time, you learn on your own. All of class time is critiques and lectures, and they're not going to spend the time to teach you how to use the program. So like by the time you come to grad school, you should feel at least comfortable enough to handle it. And then of course, like your peers help you, you watch more tutorials. But yeah, I basically learned from YouTube. And yeah, I like not copied, but like I was like very aware of like the current contemporary design trends. And I think that helped. When I got there, there's like a required design history course, and it like blew my mind. Like, because we take art history at CC, but they don't teach you anything about design history, and there's so much. I think one thing I wish I had done was like read a little bit of history before I went to grad school, because it helps you in the context.
Yeah, no, that's really good to know. Like, and see what is out there, like you said, about like contemporary like graphic designers, and kind of like understanding the culture and what people are doing in the field is also like,
and definitely like look at people who are like currently in grad school, who have just graduated grad school, because like those people coming out, not to toot my own horn, are like the freshest. Like we're changing the scene, like, yeah.
Yeah, for sure. And yeah, then like kind of how does your design process work? I stalked you a little bit and like looked at your portfolio. And it's like pretty like 90s, like, you know, like it's cool. Like it's like kind of 90s meets like modern. Yeah, so you definitely have like a
Yeah.
unique like design style. Like what is your, I guess, process like? And then yeah, how would you describe the finished output?
So basically, one thing at grad school also is like they don't really care. We don't talk about aesthetics like at all.
Mm-hmm.
Like everyone's design could be stylistically different, and we don't talk about that. We don't say like that's ugly, that's not ugly. They don't care about that. Like that's something you have to care about for yourself. Everything is like starts pretty conceptually, and
Mm-hmm.
the way you can tell in the end if it's successful or not successful is it conveying the right message to the audience you want it to? And if it does, it doesn't matter what it looks like, no
Mm-hmm.
matter. So my aesthetic kind of comes from, I don't really know. I've always been into that, like 90s. It was actually weird because I kind of went back to my middle school aesthetic. I kind of skipped back past high school and college and found my niche there in middle school. Um, but yeah, so most of my projects, we'll get assignments and they're pretty open, or, well, not at the beginning, but like after, like as you progress through school, they'll be like find something that happened on today in history and then make a project about it. And so like that day was like February something, 19th. And so like you just do research and you find something that interests you, and then you kind of just like, it happens in steps. You like work 1 week on it, meet with a professor, get a crit, and keep going and keep going. You iterate a lot. But basically I tried to make all my work about like pop culture and feminism and the intersection of those two. And yeah, I don't know what I got really into, like gendered aesthetics
Mm-hmm.
and like glitter theory, which is like making things hyper femme as a reaction to the notion that like femme aesthetics are considered weaker or silly. And so like purposely being super pink and glittery and being like, that doesn't make me less serious than your like super clean male Swiss aesthetics. Like,
Mm-hmm.
yeah. So I got really into pink.
Well, it's cool also like you talked about like art history and the history behind that, and yeah, like exploring things not for just what you like but also like the message behind them, and like yeah, where that comes from is like also cool and really important.
Yeah.
I think in like yeah, in the design process and like in anything that you do, and like connecting all those different sides of it. Do you feel like that was like fostered in grad school, or did that kind of like come from like CC and having to take all these other classes, or where did like all this yeah intersectionality like
Yeah. I
come
think
from?
CC, I became like more politically aware in general. I think most people in college become more politically aware. Um, and so, yeah, I kind of had like a crisis of faith in, not faith, but crisis of in college where I was like, I want to do art, but like, is that maybe like kind of selfish? Like I want to do something to help people or like make a
Mm-hmm.
change or like have more impact than, for me, I know that's not everyone, but for me, my art practice was kind of just like letting out my emotions or like whatever I was feeling. It was about like me and feeling.
Mm-hmm.
And I wanted to like be more about like problem solving, I think.
Yeah.
Um, and so that's kind of another thing that led me to graphic design. Um, but yeah, at CC, I know my peers were doing more conceptual work, but I really wasn't.
Mm-hmm.
uh, and now my like whole idea of everything has changed.
Yeah, like how you said like it was kind of more angsty back then, like
Yeah.
how would you like describe the change in that from CC to grad school?
Yeah. Well, I was super into like formalism back then. And yeah, I was definitely angsty my senior year. Still angsty. I'll be angsty forever. Um, but now like a lot of my practice is like watching TV shows and taking screenshots, and a lot of my practice is like research based, but like not like reading books, but like watching the TV shows and taking a screenshot every time you see whatever. And it's super obsessive and tedious, but I'm a real expert in like paradise reality TV right now. But so like I typically like write and design something, and it's kind of like a scientific method process where like I have a hypothesis, like I consume this media anyways, like I love reality TV, and I notice like something weird is happening, and so then I conduct like a study kind of. And but like my final product could be just like a collection of all the screenshots plus an essay, and like that is graphic design, and that is art. It's not necessarily like something I made with my hands, but it's like conceptually and like formally I make it look good. But I think my idea of everything is like so much wider. Like I found glitter gifts, like putting them all together in a certain way is design. Like even though I didn't make the gifts myself. And yeah, so I'm definitely more into like conceptual video, web, found object art.
Yeah. And do you think, I guess maybe this is like a hard question now with Corona and everything, but if there was like, you know, a perfect world and everything was, you know, equality was at the forefront and, you know, things were going well, like what would you want to be doing right now after grad school? Like, would that be working for a graphic design firm or freelancing or just like doing more research?
Yeah. I mean, I had a really fun time with my thesis, and it'd be fun to like continue research into pop culture and social issues in the lens of graphic design. But I also, because like, I mean, I've gone to grad school for 3 years. I know like a lot about graphic design, but I've never worked in graphic design really. So I do kind of want to like learn from someone who like knows how to, I mean, I've also like, I do freelance, but I'm just winging it. Like I meet with the clients, but like I don't know what I'm doing, and so I'd like to learn ideally at like a studio. I'm also interested in magazines, so like Teen Vogue would be ideal. Yeah, so either like a magazine or a studio, and then maybe like continue freelance. I'd also like to teach a bit. I taught Riso. Do you know Riso? It's like basically
in printmaking. Okay.
Automated screen printing essentially. And I got super into it and taught it at RISD as like a TA, but then I guess as a professor. And so it'd be nice to have access to a Riso. I like to teach people that. Yeah, it's the dream.
Yeah, no, that's cool. And there's like, yeah, I think still like what you were talking about like holds so true. It's like we all feel like we have to have it figured out right now, but from what I've heard from a lot of people and like what it seems like you're saying is it kind of like works its way out if you just like give it the time and foster those passions. So
yeah, and kind of just like say yes to most things. I definitely, for Minted at least, like when I first applied for that first job, I did not know nearly as much as I said I knew about Adobe Illustrator. And I definitely thought to myself, like, fake it till you make it, and just keep applying for jobs that you're not qualified for, but you want. And sometimes it works out, and it definitely, fake it till you make it has helped me a lot in life.
Yeah, I feel like someone else was saying it's like, even the people who seem like they know so much are just faking it. So I think that's good to hear that like you'll figure it out. I guess like my final question for you, you've like kind of like touched on it a little bit, but just if you like had some advice to like young graduates, just like whatever it would be.
I wouldn't go to grad school immediately. I would do, so before I went to grad school, I actually did like a lot of informational interviews with people in the Bay Area who were designers, and tried to figure out like I think I was trying to figure out what they would tell me about my portfolio for applying to grad school, or like they would tell me about the career path, and they were like super helpful, and now I have that contact. And I think the reality is you're not going to really get a job just applying off the internet. Like there's so many people that see that job off the internet and can apply. Like you're going to get a job through connections. And so like CC Network helped a lot actually, like because it's such a small school, and it's like you have such a strong bond. Like you went to CC, like so like just reach out to people for informational interviews, and they'll usually say yes, and it'll be a little awkward, but it'll be fine. And then you'll have a new contact, and that'll what else? Oh yeah, one thing, I don't know if it's relevant yet, but I actually went to a like RISD Career Center seminar the other day, and one thing I learned, which was like reassuring, is that if you're applying for a creative position anywhere, your portfolio matters a lot more than your resume. Like they're gonna, like they don't really care what your resume says. Like my mother is really into business, and so like she would make sure like tell me like your resume, like there is like standard resume things you're supposed to do, like CC Career Center probably tells you too, but I think like you're allowed to be more creative with your resume format, with like how it looks when you're applying to creative jobs. And your portfolio matters a lot more than your resume.
Okay, cool.
Yeah,
that's good to know. Well, thank you so much for this and for talking, and it's really cool to hear. I think a lot of people would like love to go to RISD, so I think it'll be useful for them to like hear about that process.
Yeah, cool.